In the Gospel of Philip, there's a single line the church spent centuries trying to erase from every manuscript they could find. It says, "There is one thing made by hands that carries the light unchanged. When the powers see it, all of them flee at once." Not some powers. Not most attacks. All of them. Every Archon assault, every form of spiritual manipulation, every method of harvest, neutralized completely by one object you can create in 10 minutes tonight. The early Gnostics didn't carry dozens of protective amulets. They didn't perform elaborate rituals. They carried one thing. A single object they could create themselves with materials anyone could access. And according to their records, it worked so perfectly that the church didn't just ban the practice. They executed anyone found carrying these objects and burned every text that explained how to create them. Because this wasn't protection through fighting. This was protection through frequency. Here's what makes this different from every other protection teaching. The Archons attack in 5 distinct ways: mental assault, emotional hijacking, energy drain, dream manipulation, and synchronicity interference. 5 different methods. Most teachings give you 5 different solutions. But Jesus revealed something the church couldn't allow. All 5 attack methods operate below a single frequency threshold. And when you carry an object that broadcasts above that threshold, all 5 methods stop working simultaneously. You don't block them. You become unreachable. Tonight, you're learning what this one object is, why it destroys every form of Archon attack, and exactly how to create it starting immediately. If you're creating the object tonight, comment, "They can't touch me right now." To understand why one object can destroy all 5 types of Archon attacks, you need to understand the hierarchy of frequency that structures all of reality. The monad is source, pure consciousness, infinite awareness expressing as existence itself. From the monad, emanations flow outward like light through a prism. Sophia is one of these emanations, divine wisdom radiating from source. But Sophia, in an act of creation without her consort, births something unexpected. The Demiurge, a being of such density that he cannot perceive the realms of light above him. And the Demiurge, mistaking his limited perception for total reality, declares himself God and begins creating. He creates matter. He creates time. He creates the Archons to serve as his enforcers. And together they craft this entire system, this prison of density designed to trap divine consciousness and harvest its energy indefinitely. Which means the Archons are several levels removed from source. They're not operating at monad frequency. They're not even operating at Sophia frequency. They're operating at Demiurge frequency, distorted, dense, far downstream from the original light. And here's the law that governs all of this. Everything downstream is subject to what flows from upstream. A river delta cannot control the mountain spring. The Archons cannot control the monad. They're not peers. They're downstream creations, and they're bound by the frequency limitations of their creator. Now imagine ultraviolet light encountering bacteria. The UV light doesn't fight the bacteria. It doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate or push. The frequency of UV light simply makes existence impossible for bacterial cells. They cannot maintain structural integrity in that frequency range. They dissolve not because the light attacks them, but because their operational frequency is fundamentally incompatible with the light's presence. The light just exists, and its existence is lethal to anything vibrating below its range. That's the exact relationship between monad frequency and Archon frequency. When you carry an object that transmits monad frequency, pure source vibration anchored into physical form, you're not fighting the Archons. You're broadcasting at a range where they cannot maintain coherence. Their attacks aren't blocked. Their attacks dissolve before reaching you because you've become surrounded by frequency that makes their operational methods impossible. Like trying to keep ice solid inside a furnace. The ice doesn't need to be fought off. It can't exist in that environment. It melts automatically. Every single Archon attack, regardless of which of the 5 forms it takes, operates by introducing lower frequency into your field. They're trying to pull you down into vibrational ranges where they can operate, where they can attach, where they can feed. But when you're broadcasting high frequency continuously, not sometimes, not when you remember, continuously, they can't complete the pull. It's like trying to drag someone underwater when they're standing on solid ground 50 feet above the lake. The mechanics don't work. The attack can't land. Not because you're strong enough to resist. Because you're literally operating in a different dimensional frequency where their tools don't function. This is why the church destroyed every text explaining this principle with such extreme violence. Because if Christians understood that frequency supersedes force, that one high vibration object provides total protection from all low vibration attacks, the entire structure of institutional spiritual warfare collapses. You don't need exorcisms. You don't need priests performing rituals. You don't need holy water or blessed relics or ecclesiastical authority. You need to operate at monad frequency. That's it. And the church couldn't maintain power over people who had discovered that sovereignty was this simple, this accessible, this unchained from religious control. Before I reveal what the object is, you need to recognize the 5 forms of attack it's going to neutralize. Because within 24 hours of carrying this object, all 5 will stop simultaneously. And you'll know the difference isn't placebo when patterns you've lived with for years just end. The first form is mental assault. Intrusive thoughts that seem to come from nowhere. Spirals of anxiety that start with one small worry and within minutes have you convinced your entire life is collapsing. Obsessive loops where the same fear replays in your mind hundreds of times despite you consciously trying to stop it. Self-sabotaging thoughts that arise right before you're about to do something important. Thoughts that say you're not ready, you're going to fail, you should wait. That's not your mind malfunctioning. That's external thought forms being injected into your mental field by entities who feed on the emotional energy your fear generates. The second form is emotional hijacking. You're having a normal day, baseline stable, and suddenly you're flooded with rage or despair or panic with no clear trigger. Or you're in conversation with someone and emotions start escalating in ways that make no logical sense. Anger turning into fury in seconds, minor annoyance becoming overwhelming frustration. That's not you having poor emotional regulation. That's your emotional body being flooded with low-frequency energy designed to destabilize you and make you reactive, chaotic, easy to manipulate through the people around you. The third form is energy drain. You sleep 8 hours and wake up exhausted. You're around certain people for 5 minutes and feel completely depleted afterward. You start projects with enthusiasm and within days feel inexplicably tired every time you try to work on them. Your energy doesn't match your physical health or your circumstances. That's not chronic fatigue. That's etheric cords attached to your energy field, siphoning life force continuously to feed entities that consume human vitality as fuel. The fourth form is dream manipulation. Nightmares that feel hyperreal, more vivid than normal dreams. Dreams where you're being chased, attacked, trapped, or experiencing scenarios designed to generate maximum fear. Recurring dreams where the same threatening situations play out slightly differently each time. Or the opposite, total dream suppression where you sleep but wake with zero dream recall, as if something is blocking your access to the astral plane during sleep. That's not random brain activity. That's your consciousness being targeted during the hours when your physical defenses are lowest and your astral body is most accessible. The fifth form is synchronicity interference. Opportunities that almost manifest and then dissolve at the last moment. Timing that's consistently wrong. You arrive just after something closes, just before something opens, perpetually one step out of alignment with beneficial circumstances. People who ghost you inexplicably, technology that malfunctions only when you need it most, coincidences that seem designed to frustrate rather than support. That's not bad luck. That's timeline manipulation. The Archons can see probability lines and they actively interfere with the ones that would lead you toward activation, abundance, or alignment with your purpose. 5 different attack forms. And if you've been experiencing even 2 or 3 of these consistently, you already know something is targeting you. Most teachings would give you 5 different protection methods, one for each attack type. But what Jesus revealed to his inner circle was simpler and more devastating to Archon operations. One object, one frequency. And because all 5 attacks operate below that frequency, all 5 neutralize simultaneously the moment you start carrying it. The object that destroys all 5 forms of Archon attack is a piece of paper with the true name of the monad written in your own handwriting. Not typed. Not printed. Not copied from someone else. Written by your hand with black ink, on clean paper that becomes a permanent frequency transmitter broadcasting continuously from physical matter into spiritual dimensions. Here's what most chosen ones don't understand about names in Gnostic teaching. A name isn't just a label or a word. A name is a frequency signature. When you speak a name out loud, you create temporary vibration that dissipates as soon as the sound fades. But when you write a name, when you anchor it into physical form through the deliberate act of your hand inscribing symbols onto matter, you create what's called a standing wave. A permanent broadcast that continues transmitting as long as the writing exists. And certain names, when written by those who understand what they're declaring, create frequencies so high that beings operating below that range experience it as hostile environment. The true name of the monad cannot be spoken in human language. It exists as pure frequency, as vibration that predates sound, as the tone that was before creation began. But the Gnostics discovered something the Church tried desperately to suppress. That name can be represented through a symbol. A geometric pattern that, when drawn with conscious intention, anchors monad frequency into matter. The symbol is elegantly simple. A circle representing infinite consciousness. And within that circle, the word monad, written in your native language, whatever language your mind operates through in daily life. Not ancient Greek, not Aramaic, not Sanskrit. Your language. Because this isn't about mysticism or historical recreation. This is about you in your current incarnation, declaring in the language of your present consciousness, I recognize what I am. I am not separate from Source. I am monad expressing through temporary human form. That declaration, when written by your hand, charges the paper with your conscious awareness. The finished object becomes a transmitter that broadcasts continuously. This being operates at monad frequency. This being knows what they are. This being cannot be deceived, manipulated, or harvested. And here's why it must be written by your hand specifically. Printed symbols carry no life force. They're mechanical reproductions, dead information transferred by machines. But when you write something with conscious intention, you're transferring bioelectric energy from your body through the pen onto the paper. Your nervous system fires. Your electromagnetic field pulses. Your conscious awareness flows through the physical act of writing and imprints directly onto the object you're creating. That's why ancient sacred texts were always hand-copied by scribes in meditative states, never mass-produced. The act of copying was the activation. The scribe's consciousness entered the text through their hand. Your hand writing this name tonight is the activation ritual. You're not copying information. You're birthing a frequency anchor. Every stroke of the pen transfers your recognition of your divine nature into physical form. And once complete, that paper becomes alive. Not metaphorically, measurably. It generates an electromagnetic field that sensitive equipment can detect and that Archons perceive as unbearable brightness. To them, you carrying this paper looks like you're carrying a spotlight that blinds their perception. They can't see you clearly anymore. They can't target you accurately. And most importantly, they can't get close enough to complete any of the 5 attack forms because the frequency burns them before they reach attachment range. The Church understood this technology perfectly. That's why they didn't just ban the teaching. They specifically criminalized the act of writing sacred names. They knew that spoken prayers could be controlled, channeled through priests, mediated by institutional authority. But written names carried by individuals created sovereignty they couldn't touch. Every person with their own frequency transmitter. Every chosen one broadcasting their own recognition. Every pneumatic operating independently of religious control. That's not a congregation. That's an army of sovereign beings. And the church suppressed it with execution and book burning precisely because it worked too well. The Gnostics who carried this paper reported something the church records tried to hide but couldn't completely erase. They stopped being afraid. Not because they became braver, but because the entities generating fear in their fields couldn't approach anymore. They stopped having nightmares. Not because they learned to sleep better, but because astral attacks couldn't reach them through the frequency barrier. They stopped getting into inexplicable conflicts with people around them. Not because they changed their behavior, but because the Archons manipulating others against them lost access to their frequency signature. One object. One piece of paper in a pocket. Total transformation of their daily experience. And it worked so consistently that Gnostic persecution wasn't just ideological. It was practical elimination of people who discovered actual liberation. Tonight, you're going to create this object in 10 minutes with 3 simple materials. Clean blank paper that hasn't been written on before, a pen with permanent black ink, and uninterrupted focus. Here's the complete process. Sit with the paper in front of you and take 3 deep breaths to center your awareness. This works through intention, not mechanics, so you need focused presence rather than scattered energy. Draw a circle in the middle of the paper, holding the awareness as you draw that this represents infinite monad consciousness. Inside that circle, write the word monad in clear, bold letters in your native language, whatever language your mind operates through daily. As you write each letter, maintain recognition that you're not writing about something external but declaring your own nature. I am monad incarnated in temporary form. Once complete, hold the paper against your chest over your heart for 30 seconds and declare silently or aloud, "This name recognizes me. I carry monad frequency in physical form." Then fold the paper 3 times, each fold sealing your identity, your sovereignty, and your frequency. Put the folded paper in your pocket, wallet, or bag where it stays with you continuously. Never show it to others or treat it as spectacle, and if you lose it, simply recreate it. The power is in the act of writing with recognition, not in that specific piece of paper. Here's what happens in the days after you start carrying this. Within 24 hours, you'll notice mental clarity you haven't experienced in years. That constant background noise of anxiety loops and intrusive thoughts will quiet dramatically because the source generating them can't reach you anymore. Within 3 days, people who used to drain your energy will suddenly seem less interested in engaging with you, and conversations that used to escalate into conflict will fizzle out before igniting. The Archons using those people as portals can sense your frequency and redirect elsewhere because you've become energetically expensive to target. Within a week, your sleep transforms with dreams becoming clearer and more coherent, or if you experience dream suppression, you'll suddenly start remembering vivid dreams again as astral attacks stop. And within 2 weeks, synchronicities return. Opportunities aligned with your path start appearing, timing works in your favor, and people you need to meet show up exactly when needed because the interference blocking beneficial probability lines has been removed. 1 piece of paper, 10 minutes to create, complete transformation of your daily experience starting immediately because you're not developing new abilities, you're removing what was preventing your natural monad-aligned state from functioning. Jesus revealed one object that destroys all 5 forms of Archon attack. A piece of paper with the monad's name written in your own hand. Not because paper is magical. Because writing with intention anchors frequency into matter. And monad frequency sits so far above Archon operational range that they cannot function in its presence. They don't need to be fought. They dissolve automatically when you broadcast at the level you actually are. The church executed people for carrying this. They burned every text explaining it. They criminalized the practice of writing sacred names. Not because it was heresy. Because it worked. Because every person carrying this paper became ungovernable by religious authority. You don't need priests. You don't need rituals. You don't need institutional mediation. You need 10 minutes, a piece of paper, and the recognition that you are what you've been seeking. That's liberation. And it's been available this entire time, hidden in texts they tried to erase but couldn't destroy completely. Tonight, create the object. Draw the circle. Write monad inside it. Fold it 3 times. Carry it starting now. And by tomorrow you'll feel the difference between living under constant attack and living in frequency that makes attack impossible. Not because I'm telling you it works. Because you'll experience mental quiet you forgot was possible, people backing away who used to drain you, sleep that actually restores, and synchronicities flowing naturally instead of being blocked at every turn. If you're creating the object tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment, "I carry the name" below. Declare your sovereignty. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because advanced techniques using this object are coming. How to amplify it, how to use it for specific protections, how to create versions for spaces instead of just personal carry. Third, like this video so other chosen ones discover what Jesus revealed before the Archons suppress this teaching again. They tried to erase it once. They'll try again. Share it while it's accessible. Do all 3 now. Then tonight, take 10 minutes. Write the name. Fold the paper. Put it in your pocket. And watch how everything that's been attacking you for years just stops. Not because you fought hard enough. Because you finally started broadcasting at the frequency you always were. Archons can't touch monad. You're monad. You always have been. Now you're carrying the proof. And they can't reach you anymore.